Think about the last time you made a grand promise to yourself.
Oh, we've all been there.
Right. Like maybe you decided you were finally going to organize your garage or get into running or completely overhaul your budget.
You have this massive vision.
Exactly. You had the vision. You bought the expensive storage bins or those, really high-end running shoes, or you downloaded that complicated budgeting app.
And you feel so productive just doing that.
Right. But then like a month later, the bins are totally empty. The shoes are gathering dust in a corner, and you are still ordering takeout 4 nights a week.
Yep, the classic breakdown.
It is.
Yep.
Now, I want you to scale that feeling up. Imagine that exact same breakdown, but instead of a dusty garage, it's a city failing to fix its water supply. Or maybe it's a massive corporation launching a product that literally nobody wants.
Which happens all the time, by the way.
All the time. But we usually call your messy garage a personal failure. And we call the water supply issue a political failure.
Or a systemic issue, yeah.
Right. But what if they are actually the exact same breakdown in human capability?
See, I love this because it completely flips how we look at the world. I mean,
Wow.
We are so conditioned to think of governance as this sterile external structure of control, right?
Men in suits, basically.
Exactly. Men in suits, endless red tape, fluorescent lit boardrooms. We just treat it as a strictly political category. And because of that, we completely miss the foundational mechanics of how human beings actually, achieve anything.
And that is exactly what we are dismantling for you today. Welcome to the deep dive.
Thrilled to be here for this one.
We are going to be exploring some incredibly core concepts from Chapter 3 of a book called From Pyramids to Diamonds. Specifically, we're looking at a section titled From Leadership to Governance.
It is a phenomenal text.
It really is. So our mission today is to completely redefine governance for you. We're pulling it right out of the realm of political bureaucracy and redefining it as this practical, fractal engine of vision and action.
An engine that, crucially, starts with you.
Yes, in your own life, and then scales all the way up to how an entire society functions.
Because if you look closely at why modern institutions are struggling so much right now, I mean, you really start to see this recurring fracture.
A fracture between what and what?
Well, they have separated the ideals of leadership from the actual mechanics of management.
Ah, okay.
So our goal here is to explore what happens when you snap those two pieces back together, and how doing that creates a totally different and, frankly, much more effective geometry for human organization.
Okay, let's unpack this fracture you just mentioned, because this is where the entire framework begins in the source material. The argument here is that leadership alone is, it's completely insufficient.
Totally.
And management alone is also insufficient.
Yeah, neither works in a vacuum.
Right, because if you only have leadership, you just have vision without implementation. You have a dream, but no reality.
Lots of inspiring speeches, but nothing gets done.
Exactly. But on the flip side, if you only have management, you have administration without a purpose. You're just like checking boxes on a treadmill to nowhere.
Just endless efficiency for the sake of efficiency.
Right. To me, it's like an architect who draws these beautiful, sweeping blueprints for a 100-story skyscraper, but has absolutely no idea how to pour concrete, cure cement, or, weld steel.
That is the perfect analogy for leadership without management.
Right. But then management without leadership is like a builder frantically laying bricks as fast as humanly possible without ever looking at a blueprint.
You end up with a very sturdy, highly efficient wall that goes absolutely nowhere.
It's just a wall in a field.
Let's take that architect analogy a step further, though, because the danger isn't just that the wall goes nowhere. Think about what happens when the visionary architect refuses to talk to the builder.
Oh, that's a recipe for disaster.
Right. The architect designs this massive, beautiful glass skyscraper, but the builder is standing in a literal swamp.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Without management, without that grounding in physical reality and implementation, the visionary isn't just dreaming, they are hallucinating.
Hallucinating in a swamp. I love that.
Right. And without leadership, the manager isn't just building a random wall. They are literally sinking into the mud while trying to optimize their bricklaying technique.
Which is terrifying, honestly.
It is. So, according to the text, governance is the essential integration of both. Leadership provides the visionary goals,
Yeah.
the why and the what. Management provides the implementation, the how.
So governance isn't like a third thing you add to the mix. It is the synthesis of those two.
Precisely. When you integrate them, you actually direct resources and effort toward a meaningful outcome. You are governing.
You're bridging the gap.
Yes, bridging the gap between what you want the world to look like
Mm-hmm.
and the physical actions required to make it happen.
It sounds incredibly logical, yet you look around and you see this disconnect absolutely everywhere.
Oh, it's systemic.
Culturally, we worship the visionary architects, right? The charismatic politicians, the disruptive tech founders, and then we demand ruthless efficiency from the bricklayers, the workers.
But we rarely focus on the integration of the two.
Exactly. So if governance is actually this marriage of vision and action, where does that integration actually begin? Because, we normally think of governance starting in a capital city or a corporate headquarters.
Sure, in a fancy building somewhere.
Right. But this framework suggests it begins much closer to home. It begins with the self.
It has to begin there.
Mm.
This is what the text calls the principle of fractal self-governance.
Fractal, meaning it looks the same at every level.
Exactly. Before any institution, whether it's a local school board or a massive federal government, can govern effectively, the people within it must learn to govern themselves.
Which makes sense. You can't have a functional whole made of dysfunctional parts.
Right. You have to lead your own life, which means setting the vision and the tasks, and you have to manage your own life, meaning executing the daily actions to move toward those tasks.
But, how do we actually do that? It's really easy to just say, govern yourself, but what is the actual mechanism? I can't just, declare myself the mayor of my own life and suddenly be super productive.
No, definitely not. And that's why this requires a very specific developmental architecture.
Okay, lay it out for us.
The framework introduces what it calls the 8-stage diamond process cycle. It is a sequence, a true discipline of action and reflection.
8 stages. Got it.
So first, you define the task. Second, you plan. Third, you develop the capacity or the skills needed. Fourth, you implement the action.
Okay, that's the first task.
Right. Fifth, you assess the outcomes. Sixth, you reflect on those results. Seventh, you extract the lessons. And eighth, that integrated learning builds character.
Okay, I want to slow down and really look at the back half of that cycle, if that's okay.
Go for it.
Because task, plan, develop, implement, that makes sense to most people. That's just basic project management.
Very standard, yeah.
But then you get to assess, reflect, lessons, character. I feel like this is where most of us completely fall off the wagon. What is the functional difference between assess and reflect? Because they sound like the same thing.
That is a crucial distinction in this framework, actually. Assessment is strictly quantitative and objective.
Like hard data.
Exactly. Did we hit the target? Did I lose 10 pounds? Did we come in under budget? It is simply looking at the gap between the plan and the reality.
Okay, so what is reflection then?
Reflection is entirely different. Reflection is qualitative. It asks, why did we miss the target? Or maybe even more importantly, even though we hit the target, did we burn out our entire team doing it?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So assessment looks at the data. Reflection looks at the human behavior and the systemic flaws that produce that data.
Okay, wait, let me use a personal example to make sure I'm getting this. So let's say I set a goal to save $5,000 by the end of the year. That's the task.
Right.
I make a budget. That's the plan. I learn how to cook at home, so I stop eating out. That's develop and implement.
Perfect so far.
Then December rolls around and I look at my bank account. I only saved $2,000.
Okay, so that's assessment. It's just a cold, hard fact. 2,000 is less than 5,000.
Right. But reflection would be sitting down and asking, why did I only save $2,000? Oh, wait, it's because whenever I got super stressed at work, I impulse bought expensive clothes online.
Yes. You're looking at the behavior.
So then the lesson isn't just make a stricter budget. The lesson is I need a much better coping mechanism for work stress.
Exactly. You nailed it. And that brings us to the final stage, which is character.
Character as a stage.
Yes.
Okay.
If you do that whole process enough times, you aren't just a person who successfully saved money once. You actually become a disciplined, financially literate person who understands their own psychological triggers.
So your identity shifts.
Your internal capacity has fundamentally changed. That is what character means in this context.
Yeah.
It is the accumulated momentum of learning and adapting over time.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, though. The framework argues that this exact same 8-step pattern is fractal.
Meaning it scales up.
Right. It scales upwards seamlessly. It goes from the individual to the family to the community to the municipality and finally all the way to the state.
That's the progression. Yeah.
But I have to push back here.
Let's hear it.
Is it really realistic to expect, a family or a neighborhood community to operate with an 8-step governance cycle, like some kind of mini government? Doesn't that sound completely exhausting?
I can see why you'd think that.
I mean, who wants to sit down at the dinner table and run a formal family meeting that moves through assessment and reflection to lessons learned? My kids would just walk out of the room.
Well, sure, it only sounds exhausting if you view it through the lens of traditional bureaucracy. If you imagine, passing out printed agendas and filling out forms in triplicate for every family decision.
Right, which sounds awful.
It would be awful. But remember, this is a developmental architecture. It is a rhythm, not a rule book.
Okay, so what does that rhythm actually look like in a family without all the red tape?
Think about a healthy, high-functioning family. They don't use the academic jargon, but they run this cycle constantly anyway.
Give me an example.
Let's say they decide they want to take a big family vacation. That's the task.
Okay.
They look at the calendar and their finances, figure out where they can go. That's the plan.
Makes sense.
Then they start actually putting money away and researching flights. That's develop and implement.
Right. They are doing the work.
But a few months later, they realize they are way behind on savings. That's assessment.
Yeah, the reality check.
Exactly. So they sit around the kitchen table, maybe over dinner, and realize they've been spending way too much on weekend entertainment. That casual conversation is reflection.
Oh, I see.
So they agree, hey, let's just do free outdoor activities on weekends instead for a while. That's the lesson.
And over years of doing this.
Exactly. Over years, they become a highly cohesive family that naturally knows how to collaborate and delay gratification. That is character.
So it's not a formal meeting. It's just the natural way healthy groups solve problems.
Yes. The fractal nature means the exact underlying engine of learning repeats at every single scale of human organization. The complexity changes, the stakes get much higher, but the basic mechanism of bringing vision and action together does not change.
Okay, so if the mechanics are the same, let's look at what happens when we scale this up massively. Because governing a family budget is one thing, right?
Sure.
But how does this 8-step cycle handle the chaotic, sprawling complexity of an entire society?
That is the big question. And to answer it, that requires looking at the environment in which this cycle operates. At the societal level, you cannot apply this governance cycle in a vacuum.
Right, society has too many moving parts.
You have to apply it across 4 specific interdependent dimensions, which the framework refers to as the 4 spheres of society.
Right, let's lay those out for everyone listening. It's politics, economics, the physical environment, and the social milieu.
Those are the 4.
So just to define them briefly, politics is about decision-making, power dynamics, and civic coordination. Economics is obviously the production and distribution of value and resources.
Yep.
The physical environment is the actual land, the infrastructure, the water, the ecology. And finally, the social milieu is the culture, the relationships, the shared values, the social cohesion.
And the critical vulnerability of modern governance, frankly, is that we try to manage these spheres as if they are completely isolated silos.
Like they don't affect each other.
Right. We think we can solve an economic problem with just an economic lever without touching the other 3 spheres. But the reality is that no sphere stands alone. A distortion in one immediately cascades into all the others.
Let me bring in a mechanical analogy here because I think it visualizes this cascading effect perfectly.
Yeah.
I like to think of this 4-sphere society model not as 4 separate buckets, but as a 4-cylinder engine in a car.
Oh, I like that.
Right. All 4 cylinders have to fire in sequence for the car to move smoothly. If one cylinder misfires, let's say the physical environment cylinder degrades because a city's water infrastructure collapses and lead gets into the pipes.
A very real scenario, unfortunately.
Exactly. That failure doesn't just stay neatly in the environment cylinder, the whole engine starts to shake.
Let's follow that chain reaction. What happens next in the engine?
Well, the physical failure immediately strains the social milieu. Parents are terrified for their kids' health, people get angry, trust in neighbors and institutions just evaporates, a community fractures.
The social fabric tears.
Right, and that social fragmentation destabilizes the economics because businesses can't operate without clean water, property values plummet, and people completely stop investing in the area.
Which then hits the final cylinder.
Exactly. It inevitably crashes the politics because leadership loses all legitimacy, protests erupt, and decision-making grinds to an absolute halt. The entire engine seizes up because of a single, unaddressed failure in the physical infrastructure.
That is a brutally accurate way to visualize it. And it highlights exactly why top-down, isolated management fails so spectacularly.
Because they can't see the whole engine.
Right. If a government steps into that situation and tries to fix the economy by just, say, offering tax breaks to businesses, they're completely missing the point.
It won't work.
No, you cannot mandate economic growth when the physical environment is literally toxic and the social milieu is shattered. They're treating a symptom while entirely ignoring the systemic imbalance.
So how does the 8-stage cycle actually prevent that engine from seizing up? Like, how does it coordinate those 4 spinning plates?
By enforcing constant structured feedback.
Feedback.
Yes. The cycle, from task through implementation to assessment and reflection, acts as a continuous diagnostic loop across all 4 spheres simultaneously.
How does that look in practice?
Well, if a city government defines a task politically, say, building a massive new transit system, they have to plan it economically, they have to implement it in the physical environment, and then crucially, they must reflect on its impact socially.
So it stops you from flying blind. If you are constantly assessing and reflecting across all 4 spheres, you realize the environment cylinder is starting to sputter long before the whole engine blows up.
Yes. And this creates a state of balance. When you have accurate feedback, you can adjust. Balance across those 4 spheres is what gives a society its capacity for adaptation.
And adaptation is everything.
In a rapidly changing world, adaptation is literal survival. But achieving this requires a fundamental visual shift in how we actually structure our organization.
Yes. This is one of the most powerful concepts in this entire deep dive, I think. We have to talk about the geometry of governance.
The shapes we use to organize ourselves.
Right, because right now, our default mental model for almost any organization, whether it's a company, a government, a military, is the pyramid.
And the pyramid is the ultimate geometry of vertical control.
Heavy at the bottom, pointy at the top.
Exactly. The apex is tiny, holding a few powerful leaders. The base is massive, holding everyone else. It is a structure designed for top-down domination and resource extraction.
Just commands flowing downward.
Right. The people at the top issue commands downward, basically assuming that the different spheres of society will just comply with whatever they say.
And what happens to feedback in a pyramid? It dies.
It absolutely dies.
Because think about it. If you are a worker at the very base of the pyramid and you see that the physical environment is failing, you try to pass that information up the chain.
But it has a long way to go.
Right. It has to go through layers and layers of middle management. And middle managers in a pyramid are usually incentivized to make their bosses happy, not to deliver bad news.
Oh, they filter it.
They filter it, they soften it. By the time the feedback actually reaches that visionary leader at the apex, the message is just, hey, everything is fine, we just need a slight adjustment.
Meanwhile, the base is literally crumbling into dust.
Exactly. Which is why the framework argues for a complete shift. Moving from hierarchical vertical control to horizontal integration, it replaces the pyramid with the diamond model.
And looking at the geometry of the diamond is so revealing.
When I first visualized the diamond side view that's described in the text, it was a massive light bulb moment for me.
How so?
Well, because when you look at a pyramid from the side, it's obvious. The whole thing exists just to elevate that tiny point at the top. But look at a diamond from the side. The apex and the base are actually quite small. The vast majority of the mass, the widest point of the structure, is right in the middle.
Yes, that side view perspective changes everything about how we understand power. It visualizes governance not as a prestigious destination that you aggressively climb toward, but as a utility.
The utility, yeah.
It's a horizontal service mechanism. In a pyramid, the goal of management is to serve the leadership above them.
Kissing up, basically.
Exactly. But in the diamond, leadership and management are integrated specifically to serve the broader social and physical environment stretching out horizontally around it. Governance becomes an act of stewardship.
It makes the system a true service to society at large. If you are a leader in a diamond model, your job isn't to sit at the peak and shout brilliant orders down into the dark.
Not at all.
Your job is to act as the mechanic for that 4-cylinder engine. You are maintaining that 8-step cycle. You are ensuring that planning matches reality, that assessment is honest, and that reflection actually happens.
You are facilitating learning, not demanding obedience.
And that facilitation requires immense character, doesn't it?
Oh, it relies entirely on character. In a pyramid, character is optional.
Sadly true.
If you have enough raw power, you can force compliance regardless of your integrity. But in a diamond model, character is the glue of the entire system.
What happens if it's missing?
Well, if the leadership lacks character, if they become, say, super defensive during the assesses stage, Or if they just outright lie during the reflect stage to save faces, the feedback loop breaks immediately.
The engine seizes.
The engine stops coordinating, and the system completely loses its ability to adapt to reality. The geometry of the diamond physically cannot survive without the character generated by that 8-step process.
So bringing this all together for you listening, governance is not some abstract thing that happens in a capital city while you go about your day. Far from it.
It is the fundamental marriage of vision and implementation. It starts right now in your own life as an 8-step personal discipline. You define a task, you plan, you develop your skills, you implement.
And then comes the hard part.
Right. Then, crucially, you assess the cold facts, you reflect deeply on the human element, you extract the lesson, and you forge your character.
And as that exact same cycle scales up, it becomes the engine that balances the 4 spheres of our shared world: our politics, our economy, our physical environment, and our social cohesion.
It connects everything.
It is the tool we use to dismantle the old, rigid pyramids of top-down control and build dynamic, horizontal diamonds of service.
Which means that whether you are leading a corporate executive team, organizing a community garden, trying to fix a broken school board, or simply managing your own personal health, you are engaging in the act of governance.
The scale changes, but the mechanics are identical.
You have to be both the architect with the blueprint and the builder mixing the concrete.
It is empowering, I think, but it also strips away all of our favorite excuses. Yeah, it really does.
We love to point fingers at institutions and demand flawless, highly competent governance from our political and corporate leaders.
We complain about them constantly.
But if governance is truly fractal, meaning it must scale up seamlessly from the individual to the community to the state, it forces us to ask a very uncomfortable question.
What happens if we demand that perfection from the top, but we fail to practice that exact same 8-step discipline of action and reflection in our own personal lives?
Exactly. Can a high-functioning diamond state ever realistically be built out of ungoverned individuals?
Wow. That is the perfect thought to leave you with. You cannot build a resilient, adaptive house out of crumbling, unbaked bricks.
You really can't.
If you want a society that learns, adapts, and serves the whole, rather than just enriching the few, it has to start with the rhythm of how you govern your own daily life. The bureaucratic red tape and the dysfunctional boardrooms are just a macro reflection of our own micro failures to integrate our vision with our actions.
Well said.
So the next time you hear the word governance, don't just roll your eyes and look at the politicians on the news. Look in the mirror. You are the architect and you are the builder. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Take that thought with you, and we'll catch you next time.